Welcome back to UBG Bytes. Today we're doing a deep dive into some really high-impact attack vectors, things hitting organizations hard right now.
Yeah, stuff that's definitely relevant for our audience.
Absolutely. We've got a stack of sources, CIFAs, FBI reports, CIST advisories, security research, all pointing towards the surge in SIM swapping, how attackers are getting past MFA, multi-factor authentication, and, well, the specific tactics of groups like Scattered Spider.
And our mission today really is to unpack the technical nuts and bolts. You know, the processes, the protocols, the defaults being exploited. We'll look at the tools, the research.
And critically, the robust enterprise defenses. What can you, our listeners, the pen testers, red teamers, vuln management folks, researchers actually implement?
Let's get into the data.
Okay, let's unpack this. The scale of SIM swapping. It's honestly pretty eye-opening. The numbers are stark.
Yeah.
CIFAs in the UK. They reported a, get this, 1,055% surge in unauthorized SIM swaps in 2024.
Wow, 1,000%.
Yeah. Nearly 3,000 cases filed to the National Fraud Database, the NFD. And identity fraud tied to mobile stuff in telecoms, up 87%.
And it's not just the UK. The FBI said SIM swapping cost U.S. victims, what, $48 million in 2023?
$48 million. So it's clearly a massive issue.
And the core technical process they're exploiting is, well, conceptually simple, right? Criminals hijack the victim's mobile number.
Right.
They convince the carrier, through various means we'll touch on, to port that number to a new SIM, one the attacker controls.
But without consent. And it hits the telco's processes, their verification, their porting procedures, often exploiting kind of the default ways they handle these requests.
Exactly. Weaknesses in that identity verification step.
And the why for the attackers. Why go to this trouble?
Well, it feeds directly into bypassing MFA and taking over accounts.
Makes sense.
Once you control the phone number, you intercept calls, messages.
Okay.
Crucially, those two-factor codes sent via SMS.
Okay, so that traditional SMS, MFA, maybe even email code sometimes. They're the target.
Precisely. They were seen as okay, but attackers can compromise the channel the phone number via SIM swap or email accounts. This lets them take over accounts, steal identities.
Which is why security pros are moving away from SMS and email MFA, right?
Yeah.
The sources seem clear on that.
Definitely. They're just too vulnerable to these specific attacks.
But you mentioned MFA fatigue before we started. That push bombing tactic is another angle, isn't it?
Absolutely. Attackers just keep adapting. They hammer users with push notifications, hoping they'll just hit approve eventually.
Okay, so that brings us to the how. And groups like Scattered Spider, they seem to be masters of this.
Yeah, Scattered Spider, Star Fraud, UNC 3944, Scatter Swine, Muddled Libra, lots of names.
Yeah.
But the sources paint them as experts at blending social engineering with the technical side.
Phishing, smishing, push bombing, SIM swaps,
But
the whole package.
Their initial access often starts broad, maybe with phishing or smishing campaigns,
Yeah.
but they get specific fast.
How so?
They use these victim-specific crafted domains like victimname-so.com or victimname-servicedesk.com.
Very convincing. Designed to lure specific people.
Exactly. Once someone bites, they've got that initial foothold. Then they dig for PII, personally identifiable information, on that target.
To answer the security questions the carriers ask.
You got it. They collect that PII, then social engineer the carrier support staffs, convince them to transfer the number to the attacker's SIM. That's the swap.
Exploiting those sometimes weak identity checks at the carrier level, basically carrier default processes.
Right. And now the attacker owns that second factor, the phone number.
Okay, so number controlled, what's next? They go after the internal IT help desk.
Bingo. More social engineering. Now they can receive the SMS codes or use credentials they phished earlier.
Yeah.
They impersonate the victim.
And try to get passwords reset, MFA tokens changed, especially in SSO environments.
Exactly. They might even whip up fake social media profiles to make their fake identity seem more legit to the help desk.
Wow. That really highlights the human element as a key vulnerability. It's one thing to write an exploit.
It's another to convincingly lie to a help desk person after hijacking someone's phone number. Takes a certain mindset.
I can just picture the call. Hi, yeah, it's Bob. Locked out again. Yeah, I sound weird. Got a bit of a cold.
Small chuckle, pretty much. And get this, the sources say they actually search internal comms, like Slack, Teams, Exchange, looking for signs they've been detected or if an incident response is kicking off.
They monitor the company's response efforts.
They've even been known to join the IR calls.
No way. Joining the incident response call? That's
Hell.
Audacious doesn't even cover it. That's some serious situational awareness.
It shows their level. And once inside, they use legitimate, publicly available remote access tools for lateral movement persistence.
Okay.
And lately, their TTPs include deploying ransomware, like Black Cattle PHV. These specifically go after VMware ESX servers that maps to MyTiary, ATT, and CKT 1486 data encrypted for impact.
Encrypting the virtual infrastructure. Nasty.
And exfiltrating data, too, uploading it to places like Mega.nz. They're thorough.
Okay, so the threat is real, sophisticated, blending tech exploits like hitting weak MFA or default processes with social engineering at multiple stages. User, carrier, help desk, right? Let's pivot. Defenses. For us, the security pros listening, what can we actually do at the enterprise level based on these sources?
Okay, this is where we build resilience. Pillar number 1, absolutely critical, authentication strength.
Right.
The sources are clear. Do not use email-based MFA. SMS is compromised by SIM swaps. You need MFA for all help desk interactions, especially voice calls.
And confirm MFA enrollment for all devices, BYOD included.
Yes. But the most important thing here, implement phishing-resistant MFA.
FIDO, WebAuth, and PKI-based stuff.
Exactly. Unlike SMS or basic push prompts, which fall prey to interception or fatigue bombing, that's MITRE T1621 MFA request generation, these methods tie the authentication cryptographically to the legitimate site. The phishing site just can't complete the handshake.
Makes sense. So even things like Microsoft Authenticator's number matching, which they enforced from Feb 2023, or Duo's verified push, they help against fatigue but aren't truly phishing resistant like FIDO is.
Correct. They add friction, require more user interaction, which is good, but FIDO PKI is the gold standard against phishing itself.
Got it. What else on authentication?
Basic hygiene still matters. Email alerts for any new MFA device registration. Principle of least privilege, enforce it strictly. Clean up old test accounts. Use time-based access for admin roles.
And kill any internet-facing password reset tools.
Absolutely. Too risky.
Okay. Beyond authentication, endpoint and network controls.
Essential layers, yes. Robust EDR endpoint detection and response on all endpoints. Physical, cloud, everything. It's key for spotting weird activity, privilege escalation, lateral movement. EDR can flag those odd network connections or legit tools used maliciously.
Application controls, too. Allow listing.
Definitely. Control what software can run. Prevent those unauthorized remote access tools. Unapproved RMM software. That's a known scattered spider move like MIERE M10038 defense bypass.
And RDP, remote desktop, always a risk.
Huge risk. Limit it drastically if you must use it. Audit trails, close ports, account lockouts, phishing-resistant MFA for RDP, log everything.
Network segmentation, still important.
Crucial. It contains the blast radius if ransomware like Black Cat gets in or stops attackers moving laterally so easily. Block unused ports and protocols. Use firewall rules to block comms to suspicious C2 sites or known malicious IPs, even file-sharing sites like Mega.nz they use for exfil.
Makes sense. What about monitoring and intelligence?
Constant vigilance. Monitor for credential compromise, suspicious logins, especially privileged accounts. Use your network monitoring and EDR tools to hunt for abnormal activity, lateral movement. Regularly check your domain controllers, servers, workstations, AD for any new or unrecognized accounts. Look for unusual activity indicating persistence.
And detecting those cloned login portals they use.
Yes. Critical. Setup detection. Maybe use a brand protection service, monitoring new domain registrations, impersonating you, using passive DNS, certificate transparency logs, that kind of thing.
Partnering with mobile carriers too, maybe, to spot SMS smishing using your brand.
Good point. The sources mention that. Working with MNOs can help there.
Okay, email security basics.
Strong detection and prevention platforms, obviously. But simple things help too, like adding an external email banner, just a visual cue. Disabling hyperlinks in emails for high-risk users or environments is another option.
Right. And data protection and recovery. Seems vital given the ransomware and exfil angle.
Absolutely. DLP, data loss prevention tools are key. Maybe limit outbound file sizes. But critically, offline, immutable backups.
Immutable meaning the attackers can't delete or encrypt the backups themselves.
Exactly. Test your restores regularly, daily, weekly. Ensure backups are encrypted, cover everything, including those ESXi servers. And have a solid, tested recovery plan with physically separate, secure copies of critical data and systems.
Finally, the foundational stuff. Cyber hygiene and training.
Always important. Patch and keep OS, software, firmware updated. Prioritize known exploited vulnerabilities, especially internet-facing ones.
Strong, unique passwords. NIST standards.
Yep. 1664 characters, no reuse, account lockouts. Require admin rights for software installs. And train your users. Make them aware of phishing, smishing, what legit MFA prompts look like, and crucially, tell them never to approve an MFA request they didn't initiate.
So it's a layered approach. These mitigations line up with things like MITRE, ATT, and CK, CISA's CPGs.
They do. It's about building defense in depth. If you want an acronym to maybe help remember the pillars, you could think PATCHING.
PATCHING. Okay, break it down.
Patching, authentication, phishing-resistant focus, training for users, controls, both application and network, hygiene for passwords and accounts, intelligence and monitoring, network segmentation, and governance, least privilege, good configuration.
PATCHING. Okay, that's actually pretty helpful. Covers a lot of what we discussed, drawing from CFAS, FBI, CISA, mentioning tools like Microsoft Authenticator, Duo, FIDO-PKI, EDR, DLP, attacker tools like Raccoon Stealer, and frameworks like ATT and CK and CPGs.
So pulling it all together from this deep dive, SIM swapping, MFA attacks, they're not theoretical. Groups like Scattered Spider are actively using them, causing millions in damage, blending that social engineering with technical exploits against defaults and weaker auth.
Understanding their TTPs is key for us on defense, right? From the crafted domains, hitting the carriers and help desks, using legit tools, even monitoring internal POMs.
Absolutely crucial.
But the good news, as you laid out, is there are strong, layered defenses. Phishing-resistant MFA is central, backed by endpoint and network controls, monitoring, data protection, and user training.
It's about building that resilience.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Attackers keep blending tech and social engineering. We're seeing AI emerge, a source mentioned using ChatGPT for smart contract creation, showing its potential. How do we, as defenders, build resilience not just against the tech, but against that persistent human element and stay ahead of rapidly evolving AI capabilities used by attackers? How do we leverage our own skills, pen testing, research to find these gaps first?
That's the ongoing challenge, isn't it? Constant learning, adapting, thinking like the adversary.
It really is. Thanks for diving deep with us on UBG Bytes.